At first, map 11/10 appears to have little of interest on it, being mostly fields and a great stretch of water known as the Welsh Harp. Although the lake is physically small by the standards of man-made lakes, it is deep in interesting stories. The lake provided water for the locks on the Regent's Canal in London. James Morgan, the company engineer, chose the location in 1833 because the junction of the Brent River and Silk Stream formed a natural basin. In October 1834, the company bought the land and engaged William Hoof, a civil contractor, to construct the necessary embankments and bridges. By May 1835, the reservoir was already filling with water, but James Morgan realised that would not be enough water for the system, and the reservoir was extended twice more, in 1838 and again in 1853. What we see here is the lake at greatest extent in around 1863, when it has a surface of 350 acres, and extended beyond the Edgware Road into Colindale and Brent Cross, with enough water to fill 10,000 locks. In years of drought, the Brent and Silt were reduced to a trickle. The lake would dry out and demand outstrip supply. A well was sunk in 1862 and a steam pump was used to keep the lake full. In January 1841, a rainstorm melted deep snow which had settled during the winter on the hills north of the lake in Edgware, Barnet, Hendon and Finchley. The weight of the water proved too much for the embankment and it burst. Hundreds of tons of water swept down the Brent, costing lives and destroying boats in Brentford. An attendant's cottage was built in 1843 and a full-time attendant, Hugh McKenna, was employed to open the sluice gates in emergencies. At the western end of map 11/10 is Old St Andrew's Church.
The church, St Andrew's, appears to stand in a fort, perhaps British in origin, but it has been called Roman. The church is very curious, containing vestiges of Saxon masonry, Roman bricks and other rare features. The windows are perpendicular. There are several monuments of the 17th century and one brass to John Shepherd, his 2 wives and his 18 children. Round about London, William John Lofty, 1878.
In the church there is also the Sidebottom monument. In August 1835, 4 brothers called Sidebottom drowned while swimming in the lake. They were the first of hundreds of accidental deaths in the reservoir's history. Woodfield House appears on the map to be a simple farm with a brick house and wooden barn. But the wooden building in the grounds is a chapel, and in 1852 a Roman Catholic order called the Passionist Fathers bought the property and renamed it St Joseph's Retreat. From there they sent out missionaries to work with the Catholic poor of London, Middlesex and Hertfordshire. There were plans for a large monastery, but the location was too remote for their purposes and they moved to Highgate Hill in 1858. This is Gutter's Hedge Farm, which is now occupied by Parkfield School. The occupant in the 1830s was Francis Pettit Smith, a cattle farmer. Smith had an interest in ship propulsion. He believed the use of paddle wheels, common on the steamships of the time, to be inefficient. Smith experimented on the farm ponds with model boats propelled with clockwork-powered Archimedes screws. By accident, he found the boats worked better with one twist. Smith was able to raise the capital to build the world's first steam propeller ship, the SS Archimedes, in 1839, and in trials it was shown to be far more efficient than paddle steamers. At the time, the lake was famous as a holiday resort and centre of fun. This did not begin overnight. First came the anglers in 1845. The lake was stocked with pike, perch, trout, and almost every other variety of freshwater fish. By 1847, it was popular as Kingsbury Fishery. During the extension works to the lake in 1853, the Regent's Canal Company bought a pub on the Edgware Road called the Old Welsh Harp. They replaced it with two new ones, calling them the Upper Welsh Harp and the Lower Welsh Harp. The Upper Welsh Harp was taken by Samuel Collins, an Irish music hall entertainer who introduced popular Irish songs such as The Rocky Road to Dublin to London audiences. He renamed the house the Irish Harp. When Collins died in 1865, the house reverted to its original name, the Upper Welsh Harp. The Lower Welsh Harp was leased, with its fishing rights, by William Perkins Warner. A veteran of the Crimean War, he had served in the Turkish contingent of engineers and had made his fortune buying and selling horses for the army. He changed the name back to the Old Welsh Harp. Warner had been brought up at Blackbird Farm in Kingsbury and knew the Old Welsh Harp from childhood, but mostly he was interested in improving the popularity of the venue, and he was rebranding the business. In the class-conscious mind of the Victorians, lower and upper had meanings other than the positions on the incline of a hill. Warner erected a pavilion able to seat 250 persons and organised the kitchens so that they could provide dinner for all 250 by 1862. After much obstruction from the local clergy, he obtained a licence for dancing. He also introduced new water activities, including sailing, swimming, and when the water froze over in the winter, ice skating. He brought the rich and famous to the inn. A regular was Arthur Orton, who claimed to be the missing heir to the Tichborne baronetcy, a fabulously wealthy estate at the centre of a scandalous court case. Another regular was Tom Sayers, the bare-knuckle prizefighter and heavyweight champion of England. Warner also arranged the demonstration of novel sports. John Rob Roy McGregor showed off his skills in a canoe, then a novelty, which proved successful, and canoeing on the lake can be traced back to this time. Greyhound racing using the first ever artificial hare proved less popular and was never seen again. To advertise the Welsh Harp in town, he commissioned a song to be performed in London's music halls by Annie Adams, then a popular star.
Warner's Welsh Harp, have you ever been there? Picnics, such tricks are every day seen there. You couldn't find its equal if you walk for miles about. There's no mistake about it, it's the jolliest place about.
Around 1862, a new hall was built, allowing the entertainment to continue all year round, and a year later the house was extended to include the museum containing fish and waterfowl, caught or shot on the reservoir, as well as many curios, both ancient and modern. In the same year, Warner took over the Kingsbury horse races, an annual event of little consequence. He moved the venue to farmland on the other side of the Edgware Road, building a stand for spectators and creating a year-round course. Warner made money by charging the public to enter. He had notices placed in various parts of the course forbidding betting, but couldn't or wouldn't actively do anything to stop the gambling. Quickly, rivalries grew up between the different ready money bookies. The races attracted fraudsters and were banned by the authorities in 1878. The biggest obstruction to Warner's business in the early days was the lack of public transport. There were no trains or buses, and it was a 6.5-mile walk from central London for ordinary visitors. From 1859, Warner started a special bus service from the railway station in Kilburn to the house, but it was small and never very satisfactory. Salvation came in the form of the Midland Railway Company. In 1864, they announced their intention to build a new line from Bedford to London, passing close to the Welsh Harp. From 1865, 800 railway navvies built the necessary embankments and 19 arches of viaduct to cross the reservoir's two arms. The line was opened in 1867. So many visitors came to Warner's Welsh Harp that the Midland Company decided to open a second station, simply known as the Welsh Harp, in May 1870. The end of the Welsh Harp's golden era began in the early 1880s with the development of the area into a suburb of London. In 1883, a new housing estate was started on the western side of the Edgware Road to the north of the Upper Welsh Harp. A local vicar suggested a new district name, West Hendon, in an attempt to borrow some of the respectability of the name West Hampstead. A year later, in 1884, the Post Office adopted West Hendon over Welsh Harp as the official district name. Warner's health declined and he died from heart failure, aged 56, in March 1889. Without his entrepreneurial zeal, the pub became the object of nostalgic memory and a casualty of suburbanization. The visitors dropped and eventually even the Welsh Harp station was closed in 1903.